Welcome back. Are you planning a getaway in the new year, wondering where to go, what you should expect to spend? Well, we have just the person to help answer those questions and others, of course. Peter Greenberg is one of the world's foremost travel experts and one of our favorite guests. We're lucky to have him join us once again. And Peter, welcome to the show. People are looking at, the big New Year holiday coming up, and then they're thinking to themselves, okay, now I got to go somewhere. So early 2025, what should people be thinking about?
Well, they're not thinking I got to go somewhere. They're thinking I want to go somewhere.
That's true.
It's part of our cultural DNA right now. We can't help ourselves. And this is the year coming up that you're going to throw out your bucket list because many U.S. airlines, the legacy carriers of American, Delta, and United, have literally changed their route networks and are adding flights to destinations that were on no one's bucket list, which gives you an opportunity to go back beyond the usual suspects of Western Europe, if you know what I mean. So I'll give you an example. Delta Airlines is tripling down on their nonstop flights to Italy, not to Rome, but even nonstop flights to Sicily. There are some things that American Airlines are doing, again, expanding their routes into Europe. But the big one is United Airlines, the largest international basically explosion and expansion in their history. Starting right now, they're going to be flying to Mongolia, Greenland, Taipei, the Philippines, Dakar, and Senegal. Earlier this year, they started services about a month and a half ago to Marrakesh, the first time in 40 years that a U.S. airline has flown to Morocco, and the first time ever that a U.S. airline has flown nonstop from the U.S. to Marrakesh. And we're just getting started.
Well, I know there were some stats looking at your fabulous website, petergreenberg.com, some stats about how international travel's up, year over year, but also up a lot since looking back like 2022. So if that's the big thing, people like those international trips and now there's more access to more places. What about the price tag? Does that access come at a price?
Yes and no, because you got to look at the power of the U.S. dollar in many of these destinations. If you look at South Africa, if you look at Argentina, if you look at Turkey, if you look at Thailand, even Japan, which is usually so strong with the yen, all of those currencies have weakened, some dramatically against the U.S. dollar, and they become buyers' market destinations for smart U.S. travelers.
How about the age of travelers? I saw a note on your website about that, and that people over the age of 45, travel was up something like, it was like 80% of the travelers, but 44% of age 44 and lower were down 17%. I'm exactly 45, so I'm throwing the entire thing off, Peter. But are older travelers making more trips? What are we seeing with age groups?
Well, obviously you're in that confused category, but for everybody else, let me tell you, the reason why you're seeing the older groups moving up in terms of numbers is those are the folks with the money. And what they've done is everybody talked about revenge travel in 22, 23, and 24. That's misleading. It was never revenge travel. What it was travelers saying, you know what? I'm not going to buy a new car. I'm not going to buy new clothing, new jewelry, or new electronic items. I have no idea in the post-pandemic world how long I'm going to be on the planet. So all I want is experience, and I want to buy whatever I can. And took all that money that was already allocated for other stuff, and they moved it over to the travel area. And that's why we're seeing that age group traveling more than ever.
I want to talk about airlines. There's been a lot of talk about Spirit Airlines and what would happen. Their financial footing is shaky, to say the least. But there's also talk about a lot of airlines and mergers and things happening. Tell me about what we can expect from the airline industry in the new year.
Well, remember that it was mergers and consolidations for a while. Then earlier in 23 and 24, we had the proposed merger of Spirit and Frontier. And everybody thought that was going to happen until JetBlue showed up and said, no, we're going to make you a better offer. The Spirit shareholders said, we agree, we'll take that offer, but it didn't fly with the Justice Department. They blocked it. It was affirmed by a federal judge claiming the merger would be anti-competitive. And that sent Spirit into sort of a financial tailspin, which resulted in them, earlier this year, filing for Chapter 11 protection under bankruptcy. Now, Spirit is still flying. They're still operating while they try to reorganize. But now the interesting thing is here comes Frontier again. They may be back to take Spirit to the dance. Now, if that happens under a new Trump administration where the Justice Department may be more amenable to these mergers, you may see that happen. Now, officially, it may be called the largest ultra low-cost carrier in the world if it happens. But let's be honest, there are no such things anymore as low cost. And airfares, if that merger happens, will have nowhere to go but up. So be warned.
Well, and it's something we've done a lot on this show. The Avellos of the world, the Breezes of the world, they all fly out of New Haven and out of Hartford, so our viewers know those airlines well. What do you foresee just generally in travel domestically? You talked about those great new destinations you can get to around the world. If you're just looking for a shorter flight, are there good deals to be had around the country?
There are. You mentioned Breeze. They've done a very, very good job using very efficient aircraft, the Airbus 220, that really has the range, even though it's a smaller plane, to go from the East Coast to the West Coast nonstop. And they're doing a lot of those routes right now at very affordable prices, available at the same rate. So you'll see more about that. But remember, here's the key. If you're a low-fare carrier and your only competitive edge is that you're a low-fare carrier and you can only offer low fares, and Delta, United, and American show up with low fares of their own, where's your competitive advantage? So it's going to be an interesting battleground the first 4 or 5 months of 2025 to see which airline can survive longer.
How about just general travel? Do you expect, we talked about the age thing and about, those couple years after COVID, but do you expect more people to be looking to travel just overall? Should we expect it to be a busy time out there traveling?
A very busy time across all the platforms, not just airlines, but trains. Amtrak just had their largest ridership in the history of Amtrak, and that's only going to increase. Same thing with cruise lines. Their numbers are going way up because they're going to different interesting ports. If you go back to the days of the Love Boat, you know what the ports of call were? Nassau, 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 and Bermuda. That was about it. But now over 1,400 ports of call that these cruise ships are calling at, and not just the usual suspects. Take a look at those brochures. You're going to see places you're going to go need an atlas first to find, and then you want to go there.
Well, I know I told you, I looked at your website. It's great. I encourage people to go there and check it out, petergreenberg.com. But one thing that struck me is I don't know how you keep your time zone straight or where you're everywhere. So as we wrap up, we have less than a minute left, Peter. Tell us some of the best places you saw in 2024. Give us some ideas we might not have thought of where we should go.
Well, the best places to go in 2024 in the world of over-tourism are the places that figured out the over-tourism problem. It's whether you're going to park a cruise ship in Venice or Dubrovnik. You may want to go and readdress that because of the crowds. It's all about off-season travel now. And by the way, it makes a lot of sense. There are a lot of cruise lines right now that are doing winter cruises in the Mediterranean. So plan for next November and December. You'll own those destinations. No, you won't get a suntan in the traditional way, but you'll get a great cultural immersion and you won't be standing in line for anything. And that's the trend you're going to see throughout 2025. The Bridge of Sighs in Venice should never be the Bridge of Thighs. And that's what we're seeing. So pick another alternate destination, or at the very least, a time when none of your friends want to go, but you do.
There you go. I joked with someone else here in the building that I could say to you, Peter, we have 7 minutes, go, and you'd be able to fill it. Great stuff, as always. I love it. Thank you so much for being with us. We can't wait to have you back already. Peter Greenberg's website is a great source for all things travel. Check it out. It is petergreenberg.com.